Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to episode 39 of Twilight Epiphanies Radio. This is the fourth show in the series, Our Altered Histories, and my special guest tonight is Martin Liedtke of Flat Earth British YouTube channel. And Martin is celebrating not only his fourth year on the internet, also he has recently celebrated his 1,000th video, so congratulations on that, Martin.
Yeah, cool.
So Martin is one of the leading researchers in exposing the false narratives that we have been given regarding our geographical, architectural, and social histories of our past civilizations, especially looking at the little known yet the exceptionally vast civilization of Tartaria. So he specializes in observing both the falsities and the new findings in cartography, our timelines, architecture, AntiqueTech, and the Mudfloods. So tonight, in getting to know Martin, we will begin with a look at how he grew up in his relationships with his teachers in history, bringing his own books to school, and almost demanding that the teachers answer his questions, which I absolutely loved when I heard that. He grew up on the sea with his father, so he has a very open relationship with learning, and he has a very open mind. I believe he is an absolute gem and a genius, and I welcome him to my show. Hello, Martin. How are you today?
I am absolutely epic. Thanks, Cindy. Bore da. That's Welsh for good day. Thanks for the invite.
You are welcome. So let's begin with a little bit more of just at least briefly looking at your childhood and what are the interesting highlights that you are aware of looking back now that had a significant part of how you ended up being here today. So I'd rather kind of look at it, first of all, that I believe I knew you once upon a time, and we are all coming together again because I believe we knew it was going to happen once before, and here we are again because we did remember. I've had dreams about being in a school.
1,000,000% with you. 1,000,000%. I keep getting this feeling, and I've said it for nearly 4 years. From the very get-go, I thought that this was some sort of happening where we were meant to be connected, and the people, right, that I connected with early on said exactly the same, that they thought they felt not uneasy, but they did feel internally that, oh God, I really recognize you and I know you. How can this be? You know, people outside of this plane, you know, Americans, Australians, I connected really, really, really well, and it's just been happening like exponentially since then. People like, you know, friends that you can't really find in real life, they just suddenly appear online thinking like you know, in the real world. I mean, a world full of zombies that talk absolute rubbish about things that are not important to them, they don't even know. So that's what most people do in the paradigm out there, unfortunately. So yeah, there's a blessing, the internet. It's good in many ways, but in other ways it's not. But the message is getting out and the paradigm is shifting. It's too late now. Everything is out of the bag and it's not going to be going back in because millions and millions have heard about this. Okay, the history that they give us was so bogus. How much we've been robbed just breaks my heart. You know, this what just happened with the AntiqueTech destruction in Notre Dame, 2 days back. You know, I posted about it last night. You know, my mailbag was full. And people concerned as well. You know, I got, again, this morning, somebody in my emails, Matt, I'm worried about you. Well, why are you worried about me? Because you think the expose of AntiqueTech and then the biggest AntiqueTech device in Christendom getting torched. Not only that, you know, the same day, exact same hour, 3 other denominations were hit. This is not selective. This is over the board. So that was a synagogue and 2 mosques. And the Notre Dame, and another one posted this morning, one up in America, another cathedral. Okay, so you know there's a lot of different ways you can think about this. this now. This is to draw attention to AntiqueTech, the humanity, because it's out and they've got to change the paradigm. Is that what it is? Are they taking out the last little vestiges of Tartarian AntiqueTech that was left in Europe, is what I feel. Because that building, you know, it goes a hell of a lot deeper. It's over the catacombs. It's connected with water. It's on a virtually impregnable citadel, which is a star fort, which is why this survived the mudfloods for so long, which is why this thing been here 850 years. I've been thinking about this place for so long. How doesn't it spoil mudflood when I can trace this record back so far? But it's the citadel, you see. If a mudflow or a vibrational, a serpent or a vibrational, you know, wave was coming through, it would hit this river first. That would soak up a lot of the mud. That could be drained away into the Seine. They always put the main juice on a citadel. They do the same with star forts. And this thing is hard granite all the way around it, very ancient. So I think this is why this place, and I think these centers of these star forts as well, I think they can weather these events. I really do. I think this is why this place is so significant. You know, my stomach was turning over while it was happening, you know, and I just had this sneaky feeling that it was a marker for humanity to take notice. They're not going to, but somebody, a guy from Jamaica in my comments, a really sweet guy, said, Martin, he was quite concerned, thinks, you know, that it should be dropped, okay, for such an important sacrifice, and it meant nothing to them. So imagine what they think of humanity. If then, you know, one of the most important AntiqueTech structures in Christendom, I can't think of any more besides St. Paul's, maybe St. Patrick's, New York, these sort of things that spring to mind. That is definitely one. You know, Disney have pushed it like no tomorrow, you know, with their fairy tales. So it's really cut into the paradigm. This place is not a good place. And for them to sacrifice that worries me a bit, because I'm thinking about, you know, how little they think about everybody else. And the paradigm's changing because, you know, Brexit for Britain is making people think differently. Okay, yeah, the governments are mugging everyone in Britain savagely, to the case that they're not going to stop. They just been announced. They sat on all of these evidences of what's going on against Britain and its people for almost a year, and they're not going to let it off just yet until they've killed off a hell of a lot more people, because that's what the end result of this is mass die-offs. And I can be personal evidence to this, that this is what's going on. And they won't quit until they got rid of a load of people. Okay, this is going to be pushed all the more with Brexit on the horizon. So there's a mini reset happening as we speak in the UK. I don't know what sort of state America is in, but I feel similar, very similar. This lockdown on humanity, I think this was a marker yesterday. I do. I think this was a marker, 100% marker for the, you know, if I just feel that if humanity don't wake up now at this pivotal time, at this crossroads, at this juncture, right, that we may not be able to scrape it back. Okay, the Phoenician lockdown is full on. They just sacrificed one of the biggest monuments, best monuments, full of treasures, priceless treasures they can never get back. It's just the mind can't even deal with what they sacrificed, you know. It's just really sinister. So yeah, I will do my utmost, sacrifice whatever I can to just wake everybody up in an interim period. But I don't feel like time is, like, you know, on our side with the lockdown. You know, this sort of level of Big Brother state is not something anybody would want to live in. If they really knew and sat and analysed it, nobody on earth would live under those conditions. We're not far from free now. We're all tied into this loop. What I'm saying is, when that lockdown happens, you won't even be a human anymore. You could be worth anything. And if that's what people want, and for their children and their grandchildren, and never get out of this loop of them in control, cyclical events, and the people getting down like cattle, and never taking the power back, well, that's just a real sad loss to humanity. It needs to be broken. That loop has to be broken, you see. For us, the people, it's all about the people, you know. The worst thing about it, right, is if there was, like, for example, the collapse of society, the collapse of the structure of society, they'll sort of paint a picture using Hollywood and using documentaries and films that people will turn on one another and go savage on one another. Okay. And I think in a lot of cases, maybe where I live, that might be the case. I certainly prepare for that just in case that happens. But in practice, that's not what happens. Now, the examples for this is Woodstock Festival. When you got nearly 1 million people, they rains, and what happens? All the people, they club together, they feed one another, and they care for one another. The government and the outside see, oh my God, they worked it out. They don't need us. They don't need us. They can look after themselves. Oh, damn, they're building there. They seeded them. They rained it out as well, as you know. This is just, and they never had it again. They never had it again, not to that level, because they knew that the people really can get on and we can work together. And in a reset cycle, we can pull together and we can work it out. They do, but they keep us down so we don't. It's just very, very sad. I'm glad that there's somebody and the people know anyway. No, I really am so pleased about that. It's a blessing, a big blessing in my life, that. So, yeah, you haven't said any questions, I've just been talking. Yeah, but that's my thoughts. It's been a very busy day, and with that happening, it's all changed really. It's on, people are putting on level with 9/11, and indeed, if you Google, Notre Dame 9/11 comes up with it. So it's like massive, pivotal changeover point for a new paradigm, and it's a marker. And you, at the moment I seen it, I thought, no, not that. I thought.
I agree with you. They are using it as a marker. They are using it for energy fishing, for energy feeding. We should be more consciously aware of what energy, how we observe it. We need to observe it neutral and, as a matter of factly, as to they're up to it again. And maybe not even make too much of an emphasis on what they want it to be, but just observe what it is neutrally. So I very much agree with you. Thank you for that. I did catch your wonderful video.
I wasn't going to go there. Lee Flat of British Sub, he posted about it. He sent me an email saying you need to get on this, because and everyone was just flooding my emails. I thought it's too generic, and I thought exactly that. I thought with that, Strange and all the other BS that's going on in the media right now, it's just all distractions and keeping away. But I was, excuse me, sorry, my bloody Skype's on. The people were basically bombarding me to respond my thoughts on it all, which is understandable.
Yeah. I thought it was great that you came on and did that, so thank you. And in your reference to we are able to weather the wave coming in, being a dream shaman myself, I work in that level of dreams, a seer in the dream plane. So as I was talking to you earlier before the show, I primarily have talked about a very significant dream, and you've talked about Tesla in the past and his information being already information that was there, and how the narrative gets controlled. So this was a dream about Tesla coming in to a dream, and I was a little bit hesitant about, him communicating with me. He actually offered me a cup of coffee, which is very interesting. But the point of it was after that, then I had a dream about a big black wave coming in.
From the west?
It came in, yes, from the left. It came.
Yeah, because I've had exactly the same dream since childhood, and vivid. And I actually seen it when I was younger and not dreaming, in a sort of hazy vision. And it's always from that direction, and it's very, very high indeed.
Yes.
But not only that, something else is happening here as well, because when it's happening, my stomach is dropping like I'm lifting, and that's coming in. And that's what I get in the dream. And I get the feeling too, the feeling.
Okay, I have had definitely a dream about one coming forward, and I just could not, one dream was I could not do anything about it. I just had to be comfortable and relax because it was happening. In this particular dream, a little prophetic and interesting, it came off the water. And I'm seeing in front of me, there is a man. I've stated this before in another show, but it's significant because it tells us that there is a way to weather, and it references, I believe, what you were talking about as you introed here, that there was a fisherman, which is interesting. And I think you having, grown up on the sea, even is part of my remembering here, because the way to weather what's happening is to wear a fisherman's hat and a fisherman's, a rain hat and a fisherman's raincoat. And then the wave would pass you by when you're standing on the shore. And what was important was that when the wave went onto the shore, onto land, and it went between two big, huge rocks, that it was important about it going in between, that even when it went in between and when it returned,
I know why.
It would not affect us. We would be able to weather it both ways.
I know why.
I
know why they did it. I know what that is. I know what that is.
That's
Between
why I'm here.
they built accordingly. When this happens, like the quarries, right? Which came first, the mudfloods or the quarries? Well, in the photographic record, some of these quarries look like they've been around since, say, maybe the Victorian era, and they don't really look like they've been mudflood affected. So these courses have been cut, and I think it's for the drain off. I think these cliffs you see on sides of beaches that look like they're quarries, and these quarries exactly, and these channelings that are ancient as well. I think that it's for when the waters recede, when the changeover happens. Okay, now it's all about water. I am water. I'm literally, I feel more at home, I feel uncomfortable on land than I do at sea, meaning the sea is my first home. I grew up on ships. My father was a ship's captain. And so I spent more time on ships than I did on land, which was unusual for a boy. In my sort of living in a council estate in Great Britain, okay, in them days, in the 70s and into the 80s. And then I got away to sea myself. And so it's been like encompassed a good bit of my life. But like I said, this feeling of being more in connection with the sea, it's been something with me. But like you said, with that guy weathering the storm, is poignant to me, because I see exactly that way. This guy with the sou'wester on, if you're going to weather anything that comes in like a tsunami, how they survived it in Banjahachi was they got into boats and they went out and they hit it, bows on. You ride it, you go over it, you break through. You go up it, you go over it. Now, this thing that you see and I see, that is a memory from further back. Yeah, people talk about it. Hancock, although I don't really fuss on his mainstream stuff, but he does mention with like Emmanuel Velosowski, that we are a species in amnesia. I think that's what's going on. I think it's over. I think we're starting to wake up to what this place is. And, we were so far away from what really was going on. It's just a massive end to the spectrum. Take a look at that civilization behind you. It's scintillating. This place was amazing. You had water tech, at AntiqueTech, you'd had technosmia blowing through church bells. This place must have been bliss. Yeah. And look at it now. We get shopping malls, which are nothing more than concentration camps. I can't really see the difference. And this way of treating us like cattle, funneling us in. Soon we're going to have adverts chasing us down the road. Offering us embarrassing things. And this is a reality. They're testing it in Japan. I don't want this reality. I don't think that humanity needs any of it. We need to go back to that. How can we be more advanced on 200 years ago, only that little ago, right, to a level that leaves them now looking like they are very inept? The level of, these fundamentals that they were working on was the real fundamentals of this place, the ether tech, and drawing the resonance, and the mountains of electrostatic charge that is freely available to humanity. I'm sure the elite use it. Okay, people on internet are doing this. It's there. Okay, so this was the past, which all disappeared by 1900 for the new epoch, which was introduced by them, which was the Great Expositions, which means spinning a tale, a story, not real, make believe. They tell you how history was. Knights, gladiatorial battles. We battle, we war. We're not good people. What they really mean is they're not good people. and they want us to think that we're like that, but we're not. We're far from that. We work on symbiosis. We work together like the animals do. We're not that stupid. They tell us we are. Yeah, people are working it out. And the health is a biggie as well. You know, all of the bombardment on our senses, the water, the food. Now we can't even get an un-GMO, you know, seed stock to magnetize. It's a bit of a tragedy, but they do exist, and I have got some non-GMO. But these food stocks, you know, independent, are getting rarer, and people, I don't think, understand the relevance and what that is. That's like the extinction of anything natural on this planet. So what the hell's going on? People need to get out and propagate nature, in my opinion. Yeah.
Oh, precisely. So, well, since we've wandered in already, let's take a look at the expositions as part of this, because I had wanted to also talk about Chicago, since I just live in a southwest suburb of Chicago here. And
wow.
Yes, so Chicago, do come and visit. You're welcome to come. I
got friends in Chicago too. They said he lives in Chicago. I've got a few people.
Okay.
Chicago friends, but it is the Windy City is somewhere I always talk about, always have. I've always wanted to go and listen to all the music that they play. Is it Maxwell Street that they play all the funky music?
Yes, and yes.
For the longest time, when they play all of the soul and all of the Motown.
Town blues. Yes, I saw very much on
Jolly Hooker. Like that's, you know, like on Blues Brothers, because that's in Maxwell.
Yes, yes. I've listened to a lot of blues music and live bands in the past, and I see you also like Soul Train. Yes, one of my favorites.
That is me out.
Free.
I love people doing extraordinary things, you know.
Yes.
And all people got talents, and some of these people step out, and you're just like,
yes.
Whoa, that was something special. That's why I like to watch it, you know. It's just
yes, that leisurely, what they called soul. Truly, that is the essence of what they have wanted to take away. That rhythm, that dancing, that spiraling, that.
I followed the series for a while on YouTube, right? And, you know, they were always a line of Black Americans dancing. And then as it went on into about 1972, the one episode, they introduced a pretty white girl, which I don't even think I'd seen on the Soul Train before. And they were all there. They're really brilliant dancers. And she comes out and she just slams it with the best moves. Robotics, 1972, doing the robotics like they do today, but better. And everyone just erupted like, yeah, she got moves, like, and they all just embraced that. It was just, I was like, that was brilliant.
well, that's very meaningful to me. I literally, I am 61 right now, and at 16 years old, I was in an all African American bar doing the bump. I was learning the bump. I loved to dance, and my dad had taught me to ballroom dance, and everyone would say, "Girl, you got moves," you know, because I ended up being the Rose Lady, which is very significant. My epitaph is the Rose Lady. And I worked in all different dance locations. So I learned and watched salsa and country and stepping, where these people doing stepping had these beautiful, glorious costumes and hats on that were huge and just beautiful. And it was remembering. And when we get to these big buildings and dancing, I want to also tell something significant I feel about that and the vortexing and that. I believe you've mentioned that in your videos.
Okay.
But when I looked a little bit at the Chicago exposition, and that had taken place in the, what was it, the May 1st, 1893.
Yeah.
It was interesting, and that their opening ceremonies, the World's Columbia Exposition, so this is celebrating what they called the 400th anniversary of Columbus landing in the Americas. And President Grover Cleveland, in the opening ceremonies, presses a button that is signaling the opening of the Chicago World's Fair. He literally pressed a button. That's the first history that I found last night. How significant is that?
Well,
Then,
they've had a president shot in an exposition, McKinley.
well, also what happened, well, that's interesting that you say, because what happened here, we had a favorite mayor at that time, Mayor Carter Harrison Sr. also was assassinated then at the end of this fair on October 30th. He was assassinated at the end of the fair.
Halloween.
And how remarkable is that? And then at the end, and it was a favorite mayor, and at the end of that fair, instead of them doing a closing ceremony, they had a funeral memorial service.
They were sacrificing, they were spilling blood on the side.
And they were closing an epic time frame, precisely. So I would like to hear then, you have videos already about the Chicago Exposition and other expositions. So what have you also found as you were starting to talk about expositions?
Something doesn't fit with Chicago. Something doesn't fit with it all. And I can't work it off just yet. Now, if the whole of Chicago, and not only Chicago, the whole area, what was called the Peshtigo forest fire event, which apparently engulfed a good bit of, some of the Great Lakes, and the whole of Chicago at the same time is attributed to this event, right, which is so big that ash falls in the Azores off of Chicago, thousands of miles away. I can't get my head around that when it's all like this big elaborate masonry that shouldn't actually be then in reality. The stone's not ready, neither of the quarries. And if you follow the same story with Chicago, New York, and all cities in Christendom, apparently they have really tiny populations at the 1800 mark, literally in the maybe 10,000 if you're lucky. And then they attribute to these constructions to gold panners in the case of the West. And basically the whole civilization is up and running and there, right, prior to the Great Fire of 1871. Then Chicago is eliminated, and within no time at all, exactly the same MO as San Francisco being destroyed, exactly the same, right? It spooks me out to think this world appears, this old, beautiful, elaborate world appears, and all the buildings from all of the different countries on earth, and an exposition for science, and an exposition for Egyptology, you name it, they put in a subject that they were introducing to humanity. What really happened? This really, really gets on my nerves to think that how could they do it in such narrow time frames? I got a sneaky feeling that a lot of this stuff is already there. When you see these cities mapped out, okay, they got the infrastructure and the grid pattern, the city streets are there, okay, but buildings that are not really built on the maps, and the population's not there. They put the bridges in the case like New York, Washington Bridge, one I looked at yesterday, massive bridges, when there's only horseback and people. They didn't really need these massive structures. Again, knowing that what was coming. So that's the motor car, okay, and that just changed everything. But they prepared for it. They knew what was coming. It just goes to show there's nothing new under the sun, and everything is being sat on after every reset. What the best of what they reversed engineered or kept, the secrets, will be let out. The way I see this now, right, is because we're in the later throes and we're a post-flood society, and we're in the later throes now, winding up to the next cyclical event, okay? When we never had many people in the early 1800s, and all of those people arrived within 100 years, we can't really work out where these orphan children have arrived from, and the populations of the cities. I'm sorry, but reproduction doesn't crack it. Not when you've got a worldwide apparent cholera epidemic wiping out tens of millions in every continent. I posted last night millions of skeletons on Havana alone. A tiny little island. There's not even that many people really. What's that? The entire population. So this is happening across the board, okay? Across the board. I can't even get my head around what it is. It's almost as if, we've been completely wiped out that recent, and they managed to reset it. And there's something that happens in interim periods in between. We can't work it out. The photography is an anomaly. I can't work out whether we're looking at another time further back. I got last night, I'm going through a photographic collection, mint HD, moving shots, people jumping in the air, 1835. So by that, I smashed the historical paradigm, because apparently photographs are not around yet. Later, in the 1830s, the first photographs arrive on glass plates, right? And they're really rough. If you Google now the origins of photography, they'll show you the first human. It was a man, a Freemason, by the name of Cornelius. Okay, that's the first selfie. And the first shot is a French street from 1837. I've got pristine mint moving shots from 1835. I can't work it out. They're not saying that these buildings that we're looking at are cited as construction. Then they're saying this is when it is the photo. So this was pulled by other members in the community as well, that some of these crystal photos are actually a lot earlier. And I read early on that there's a conspiracy out there that Eastman has actually been sitting on the true age of photography all along. And actually it goes way, way back. You know, they got to keep it out, because if you think about it, we got photographs of important people in history like the Duke of Wellington, but we don't have a photograph of Napoleon. In fact, we don't have a true representation of Napoleon. Only his death mask that they give us, but they give us a lot of death masks like Oliver Cromwell or Medici. Can we trust these death masks? Are they true representations of these people? Or are they just social engineering rubbish that they have made that? Because this is what I'm thinking is going on. You know, they tell you how it works in the 60s. They give you Sgt. Pepper's. Every single one of those people on that cover are the social engineers of this paradigm. Every single one of them. No exception. They tell you, but they know that the sleeping masses will never know. It's just until only the initiated. So yeah, this is a stage set Earth, and they're treating us like a farm. And they haven't got our best interests at heart. People need to wake up, is the way I think about things. You know, it's going to be a change in paradigm soon anyway. That was a catalyst yesterday. That was a starter. And all these other structures, churches from different denominations that went up exactly the same day is a marker. Okay, and it's a definite crossroads for humanity. I'm not sure exactly the way it's going to be panning out, but they are telling us, that if they're willing to sacrifice their greatest achievement in antiquity, one of the greatest. I can't imagine that. Even if I would have been a week ago, somebody would have said to me, the Notre Dame will burn, I would have laughed in their face and said, no way will that burn. You know, so that was a shock for them to sacrifice that. So their attitude towards humanity, if they're willing to do that to their own greatest stuff and all their artworks that they can never get back, it's just, you know, quite alarming. Because what's next? You know, this is not even false flags. This is a new paradigm of the most important structures in humanity being burnt out in front of the world, you know. But like you said, everyone draws their mentality, and I'm done and dusted. I'll have a little look if there's any more clues, but I'm done and dusted with that. I'm moving on. You know, I'd see what it is, but I'm not going to draw any attention on it because they want you to. And then my thoughts are, you know, are wasted, introduce things that are on the news, like Julian Assange or, you know, churches burning. So I'm moving on. I had to report on it, but time to move on. Not thinking about it no more.
Yes, well, I agree with you. I feel the same way. And of course, the point, as you also elaborate on, is to remember that it's difficult to determine how it will play out, but one thing is for sure, we don't want to go according to predictive programs. We want to erase that, and we want to, what I see, allow a completely open opportunity here to be completely different. And of course, in my healing work, I work a lot with this. And I want to use this as an example, as a microcosmic example. So often in my work, someone will come to me and say, oh, I just went to a psychic and they told me, for example, this is true verbatim how it happened, my divorce is going to be so hard on me, and this and this and this is going to happen, and I'm going to have all these troubles. And I look at the numbers that are in her chart, which I see on paper extend all the way on. And in my opinion, I'm looking at the past I'm not looking at the present. I'm looking at the past that's already taken place. And she has the opportunity to do things different in the present. Certainly, the energies dictate here and say that it's necessary for her to break out of what is, I refer to it, well, it's called the 16 number. It's the 16 is the tower card in the tarot, and it references the tower, and a lightning bolt hits the tower, and two people have to leave the tower. They have to leave the structure that they've been molded into in order to grow. So it's us coming out of what's been placed around us as a limitation and moving into something different. And in a sense, that is what we need to do here. We need to break out of the structures that have been imposed around us. So long story short here, in my opinion, and I ask spirit, I communicate, and I say to the universe, is this true that she must experience this? And I got an absolute no. So in working with her perception of reality, her divorce went so smooth that she found it almost unbelievable to happen, how her husband simply handed over the deed to the house. Everything was simple. It was so amicable. It was beautiful and wonderful. And my opinion is, this is exactly how we can work what is taking place right now. So I want to set that as an example.
Awesome.
As we open up here for what can truly take place. I've seen it happen. We have to release, and as you stated it so beautifully and eloquently, it's true. They are programming us to believe that it's going to be an apocalyptic scenario where we all turn on one another and there's no resources. That's not true.
No, it's not true.
That we can manifest all the abundance and whatever we absolutely need in order to move through this storm. I received the dream. You confirmed the information. It is absolute truth. And those with ears to hear, eyes to see, and eyes to project that picture of reality outward, it can take place. So all that we possibly can do is offer these truths that we have experienced, that we are aware of, and that we know to be absolute if someone's ready to be open to that perception of reality, that new openness. And what I also find is that we are always referencing our future by the limitations of what we perceive happened in the past. So we have to let that go. We have to eliminate any
100% with you on that.
Took place before, because then we mental frame and project our forward.
You gotta let it go. Animals do it. If you have two ducks and they fight, okay, they'll have a fight and the duck will walk away and it'll shake off that extra energy and get on with its day and talk to it again later and have a quack. Humanity won't do the same. It won't shake that off. It'll store it lifetime after lifetime, and it'll kill you. It'll kill you. That will kill you. That hate, that inside. So yeah, you have to let go of the past and anything that's happened. And it doesn't actually exist. Where is the past exactly? It's figments in your mind, in your imagination. And believe it or not, some people will actually change their memories to suit themselves. Yeah, it's not a type of mental illness. Yes. It's something that people will do through, mental weakness, if you like. They will change it to suit themselves. And they will know the exact scenario, but they will blank it, and it will cause an imbalance, and it will cause a break as well later on. I've seen it happen. It's a really unusual scenario with the mind. But yeah, you're bang on there. You're on the money.
And that is how we were brought together again, and how I receive a lot in a very right brain reference. And you have all this excellent, especially left brain side of what you've been researching. So with this is the alchemical marriage here taking place again.
I agree.
We're marrying the true alchemical energies, the origins, back together again. So people's memories exactly have been implanted, false memories suggested to them. And what I find is so significant is that the moment that I relax through any type of an anxiety state over, let's say there's significant conflict, there's significant challenges, and this doesn't happen overnight. It takes practice. We all need to be practicing now. So a MIDI example is, I'm attempting yesterday to put some of this background together and etc. And everything's going wrong. Let's say that literally 20 attempts are going wrong, and I'm running out of time, but all through it, I'm still relaxing. I'm still relaxing after every time I get anxious and going back to neutral. I am resetting back to neutral.
Exactly what you got to do. You got to flip that negative to a positive. Anything negative is then. And why would
what
you
happens? Yes, and what happens? I find solutions. Solutions appear in neutral. They do not appear if you have a mental framework or a memory that's inhibiting you to receive true revelation. So also I want, as we continue here, I wanted to present that premise here and have us understand how we can remember the past, the origins, and I
think you touched upon it earlier with that picture behind you, you know, that it's been sort of, you know, shrouded from us. It's been, you know, we just had blinkers on. We never seen this stuff. And then also all of a sudden there's a big, amazing, scintillating, magical world that's been just before us, more advanced, and it's blowing everyone's mind. Where was it before? Where was it before? And the more you find out about all of this, the more shows to you. And you think, oh my God, is this real? But you know, because the creator, the universe, will indeed let you know if you're on the right track. I ask every single night before I get my head down, God, please tell me, am I on the right track? Am I doing the right thing here? And I always, without a doubt, get that non-audible voice that will say, just relax, man. Just go with it. Just don't even worry. Don't even worry about a thing. And as for anxiety, I should be very anxious, but I don't allow myself to get anxious. I cancel it. I spent years anxious. And the other side of me, people do not want to see. So I got to keep that away from humanity. Okay. I flip. It takes a lot. You know, people can give me hell and I will take it for the longest time, but there's a breaking point. And if that happens, God help anyone in my presence. I'm really excited.
I call it my volcano point. And yes,
same. I go berserk.
Very necessary. You get very many warnings, but
yeah, if you push me too far, you're going to have your life.
And my volcano side has helped to save people's lives, literally, because it them up out of the, you know, past.
Super strength as well.
I'm looping in. When you're dealing with a level of what overtakes others at times, if you're not prepared to go into a super side of yourself that's powerful and strong and say, I will defend myself appropriately by not allowing you to impose your reality over me.
I'm not worried about any man on earth. I don't care how big they are, who they think they are. It's just not going to bother me. Honestly, I just really, in this place, I've been through so much. And I'm really not that bothered anymore. They don't scare me, none of them. Honestly, they just don't. Because it's just the same. We're souls inside of meaty bodies. And you're an equal to me. Okay, no matter who you are. You hate the thought, but it's true.
Exactly.
So we're all connected. We're all one. You hurt me, you hurt yourself. Yeah.
Exactly. And they cannot truly violate that law. They can only have us proceed forward and once again against ourselves, us against us, and have us do the destruction because we are tacit consenting to everything. So let's do a little bit regression here to Tartaria. And you began your research then more than likely with receiving maps of Tartaria. And
no, I think it was more inherent. No, it didn't start with maps with me.
Oh, okay.
I'm Estonian.
I'm
Estonian. My father's from Estonia, Tallinn. And the
Oh,
second
okay.
city in Estonia is Tartu, and the main strip through there is called Great Tartarian Street. And
Oh, how exciting.
yeah, so I
Wow.
thought, well, like, when I first heard about Tartaria, which was through Sylvie, maybe 3 years
Okay.
ago, maybe
Okay,
3 years ago.
wonderful.
Yeah, I knew
Yes.
it. So I thought, that's just like that street in Tartu. So I basically went on Google, went down, had a look around, and like, right, so I'm at Tartaria now. All right, cool, cool. Well, what's this all about? And then I dived in. I must have more expansive library about Tartaria than any other human on earth at this point. I know so much about this, and it is a reality. There is someone else. Don't get me wrong. They didn't have all of Earth. I'll give you an example. The Aztecs were basically when the Phoenicians arrived and they introduced this death cult and everything went coaxi-cattle death cult. And then the engineering, basically the pyramids, the step pyramids, which are nesting technology, okay, was not being harnessed. They were being used, as the glyphs show us, for practicality of killing en masse. Okay, like impaling people, just like the film Apocalypto shows. Well, that's what they tell us anyway. So this is the Phoenician mindset anyway. Okay, so who were the Aztecs before the Phoenicians came? Because they weren't Italians. I really don't think. There's no similarities in their culture at all, none at all. So there's others out there, but the main civilization of this advanced culture. Now, I do feel, I haven't said this, it was the beautifulest culture ever, but I do feel that they did have an elitist hierarchy because the structures dictate this. And they're an empire, and so they're imperialistic. I can't really pinpoint. But the fact still remains that they had a beautiful society and the people were very beautiful and they're very happy, okay? And these Phoenicians, this water race, okay, which I'm going to be talking about a lot in the next couple of weeks. I can't talk about it now because it'll just be gone, but it is massive and it is real. And when the penny drops, which it will, it certainly will, you will know. And you'll look at these behind you, these pictures of the Great Exposition, and all will make sense. And the Mudflood will make sense. And the buildings. But what don't make sense is why we didn't know, why we didn't notice, and how this changes happened so quick, and the paradigm shifted so quick. For me personally, I'm flat with British, so it was first, oh, right, well, I really don't think we're on a globe thing. Okay. Then I dived into electromagnetics through, works like you just said, through Winters or Dan Wheeler or Wheeler, people like that. Went into, the physicists that are available online. Okay, the amateur physicist into magnetics, and then sort of worked out what this place was, because it seems to be, and it is, overwhelmingly encoded into our reality. I can see it now on the building behind you. It is that pronounced. You can't miss it. Nobody knows. It's all over everyone's face. Okay, it certainly is the electromagnetic model, and our bodies, us, we work on exactly the same principle, that positive, negative, the dialectic version plane. So I believe happy hats actually work. This space above the crown chakra, the vortices above the crown chakra. I think this hollow point where they had like top hats, I think that is sort of emphasized because I feel we might be receptors for information. I can't think that I know all this stuff, not really, but I got a talent for looking over vast amounts of data, okay? And I will speed read it, and my mind will tell me what the important juice is. So it'll say, stop, read that again, that was important, and I'll read that again, I'm like, right, okay, that'll stay, and I'll carry on. This is how I do it. So I have that talent that I go through massive amounts of data and pick out juice, okay? But the information that I just pick out of the ether, and I'll double check myself and say, is that right? Do I know that? And I'll Google it and oh yeah, right, okay, I know that. Where did I get that from? It's like the Akashic record. I can just pull it out of the ether. So I think, okay, that we might be receptors for information is in the ether. That's why I wear my hair long. Like the Rosicrucianists definitely believe that, didn't they? With their growing their hair long, there was antennas to their follicles into their minds, into the brain fluid, which would enhance this technology of, some people call morphic field. I don't know what to call it, but it's definitely the universe. what I like to call now, I think, works out for you, doesn't it? If you do it right, sort of pans out. Yeah, you can see it happening. You don't want to take, anything for granted. You don't want to push it. You don't want to recognize it too much, if you know what I mean. Just ride it, go with the flow. That's what I say. So that's what I do. It's definitely there. In my case, because making a difference in the world and smashing paradigms, things get a bit strange. I have to double question myself. Am I just a bloke in my house living in a fantasy world and none of this is real? Is what I ask myself sometimes. And then I go onto my comments on my emails, and real people, will tell me, how much I've changed in their lives of different sort of formats. And Martin, this is off the radar. So for that token, I need constant verification externally that this is real, because you will double question yourself, that you're not on the right track and stuff. But as I said, I keep having verification daily, which allows me to go further into this rabbit hole, further down the rabbit hole. I don't know how far down it goes.
Well, so for those of us who, I'm fairly familiar now, having researched and watched several videos about the civilization of Tartaria. So can you tell us about the old maps, and when someone's looking at these old maps, what it means and where Tartaria was, so that we can begin there and then work up to the aspects of the architecture so that others can take a look around their area, those who haven't made it here yet, till we can state that again, reminding everyone that you have a vast collection of this on your website. So this is a definite teaser here into all of the incredible videos that you have already done that elaborate on this point. So this is one great summary here, and adding in to these shows a little bit of my spiritual take on it. And we have obviously designed this to meet again and put these correlations back together again. So let's take a look at what you're finding in the maps.
Okay, well, I collect atlases, and I collect antique atlases also. And I've been studying them since I was a small boy. Okay, my fascination with photography is very early. That's my earliest fascination, I think, with maps. And I never ever seen Tartaria. Now, I see Mongolia, which said it was an autonomous region, but it never ever seen Tartaria. Now, when this arrived, this Tartaria, I went back through some of my old atlases, and lo and behold, there it is. But I never noticed it, and I'm very keen eye. And but there it is in our reality. So they got us colour, like they colour the British Empire pink on a Mercator projection in your schoolroom. Well, if you imagine most of the top bit and a good bit of South America and the center of Africa, all Congo tar, all the way down the south tip of Africa, and pretty much the entire place would have been the color of yellow, which is Tartaria. They were the greatest civilization that ever was. They like to say the British Empire. They only blow that trumpet because they took out Tartaria. The British are in fact Phoenicians, and the Phoenicians, the maritime race, were the ones that did it. There's no doubt about that now at all, right? Got the proof anyway. So the maps started to change. They started to be on the borders near maybe 200 miles east of Moscow is the border of Muscovy. Okay, but what we think earlier on is Moscow was indeed a Tartarian city. Why do we think that? Because it's jam-packed full of Tartarian structures. We think this might have been a hub, and the expansive Starfort system, etc. That bit is missing. There are some clues, like the Lord Mayor's of Moscow's coat of arms from 1850s shows both the griffin and the Muscovite symbols. So the double-headed eagle, the imperial eagle. So he had both on his. So there is clues that it was Tartarian. So I think the Muscovy was a lot smaller, just a sliver, bordering the Eastern Bloc countries of Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. The rest was Tartaria, but they did come here. They came to Britain. I don't know whether they were in full control, but their fingerprint is all over our reality. In Scotland, you've got tartan. The tartan is identical to the tartan worn by Tartars in the Ukraine. You know, this is no accident, okay? Now, the maps, we can't really trust too many of them, I gotta be honest. I always realize that. I prefer to trust my printed, that have been with me for the last 40 years books in my possession, than what they show online, because so many have just been punched out there. And honest to God, you can do that in 2 minutes on a computer. And they're poorly cartographied anyway. There's no consonant that's accurate size. They never ever do anything. And they're not even on a Mercator, these projections, but at the same token, it was there. Now, I'm flat earther, so what I think is there's more land. I really, really, really do. I think that the Hyperborean area, if it's still there, okay, is in a place further north than they're telling us in this flat realm. Okay, I definitely think this could be a scenario, and I think this could be the origins of the Tartarians, and sort of like what they say, like Atlanteans. Okay, now when this cyclical event happens, that is the skyfall, it's more than just any EM flip. It's I can't say it in a sentence just yet. No, that's just going to mess my day up. It will happen, right? But it's not what you think at all. It's just not. It's not what any of us thought. But once you know, it gives me shivers even thinking about it. Okay, that's why I know. All right. Mudfloods were definite. Okay, these buildings you see, not these ones, but these Tartarian structures, they all exhibit that they've been underwater, don't they? Yeah. So we've had big floods in the mid-period, 1550s, I would say. But I would say, okay, this is what I would say. What I'll do is I'll give you a little chronology now. I think this ran out. I mean, the whole world, right, was Tartarian, and this level, okay, in what they would call the periods of the 13th, 14th century. Okay, because these glittering golden maps that I have seen with my own eyes, as in the Map of Monday in Hereford Cathedral, that I sort of can trust. I know its origin. There's these scintillating palaces, okay, like that in the background. But in 1290, following that, the big one. Now, I'm not talking Noah's flood. I'm talking a cyclical event that does happen in this place. It's based on what the Phoenicians show us. They actually, in their architecture, show us and tell us without any shadow of a doubt what is going to happen, okay? A big part of it is the water. They can do anything with water. Yes, anything with water. And what have they done to everyone in Christendom? They baptized you. They christened you, right? They christened you to this water to resurrect you to the new Phoenician state. And where do you think that Phoenician state was before this? Have a guess.
Tartaria.
Now, coming up to 1500, there was a big event. Okay, took out Rome. I can show that through ancient documents. There was events, earthquakes as well. Santorini event, I think, was around this time, which attribute to to the Egyptian plagues, etc. But that recent. Okay. What I think happened, I think this place took 2 generations probably to get a little bit better, okay? So I think they switched off the calendar. It's the only way I can make sense of it, meaning there may be a couple of 100 years that are not included in this, okay? And they've had to alter all of the dates, which would explain why there's no date further back, and you can't trace them, because they're not there, because that time wasn't there. The Dark Ages didn't exist. The first millennium AD on their calendar don't exist, but the time period does. The time period does, but not their calendar set up in their chronology, okay? Coming into the 1500s, and I think I know now that there was later smaller reset events, and it was all to do with after the Phoenicians came into the Americas, and this was way before, when they say Columbus, we're talking 12th, 13th century, okay, when the time of the Knights Templar taking treasures, building the Oak Island. That's not what was going on. These were Arcadians. These were Arcadian refugees escaping Phoenician persecution, murder, which is still ongoing to today, okay? Now, these Arcadians are the Basques, they could be the Celts, they could be any really nice sort of indigenous peoples, which is just splattered around the world. And that's how they had to live. the gypsies, the Romany gypsies. Yeah, they are Tartars, but they look a mess because they've been subjected to look like that over time. Okay, World War II come, before the Jews. Who do you think was rounded up first? The gypsies, 800,000 of them. Going on 1 million. So, you know, it's the eradication of these people. It's still ongoing, and I think that this event with Notre Dame is definitely part of it. That is its Tartarian structure. There's no doubt in my mind that that's the case. This is AntiqueTech, okay? The technology that the Phoenicians got, they can do anything with water. The other stuff they took from Tartaria. And we have proof from this, and there's more coming through a guy called Bailey, who's a contemporary of Benjamin Franklin, and he states that our sciences were taken from Tartary. From Tartary is what he says. The center of Asia, not the Greeks. The Greeks took it from Tartary. All of this, you know, they just spun it in a Western philosophy sort of manner, you know, the Greeks, the classics and everything, but the Greeks were not the Greeks anyway, and neither were the Romans. They were ruled by a ruling class of a very strange Babylonian family, okay, the Barkasites, the Phoenicians, who are running the world's monetary system, the world's banking system, world trade system, as we speak today, okay? How do I know? Because they're emblems of triumph in every American, British, and world city. The architecture screams it. They took out the Tartaria of the architecture, and they're still smashing that stuff up today. And the more we notice, and just fears that the more we notice, the more they'll get rid of this stuff, you know? And that's not the case. You know, they did it with the Gulf War, smashing up the remnants of ancient Samaria and blowing up Baalbek. You know, is that a response from the Arab world against the Phoenician overlords? You know, I think that actually might be now, the more I think about it. You know, if there is reality, they're only on TV pictures, that's no like evidence for me, but you know, it's still out there that they're smashing antiquity. And it's still ongoing today. It's still ongoing, this story. Never ending. But there is a loop, and it can be broken. It can be broken. I know this in my heart that it can be broken. Okay? People are a lot smarter than they give themselves credit for. They just lock themselves down a little bit. Yeah. This, we only got like 10% of our mind, brain working thing that they tell us is going on is just make believe. Okay, if you go on that, you're constantly undermining yourself and you're thinking you're not got your full potential. I think, why limit yourself? Why limit your mind? Why not release what you know is there? That's what the way I think about it. You just release it all. If it's to the good and you're doing it for people and you're doing it for humanity, actually, then you don't really have to worry about it, do you? Just go with it. But it is a bit of a shame that people are so heavily indoctrinated into false paradigms. That upsets me. You know, I'm like, I've got to be careful. I can't like tell the truth because somebody with a sensitive disposition about, you know, one of their deities might get upset or something. You know, it's really, really narrow tightrope to walk in this field of alternative history because people are so into false paradigms, into implanted ideas. Nobody can work out, right, that their thoughts that they've had have been told to them by other people, and you're not really getting any original thoughts. Not really. You listen to the telly, who's implanting thoughts, books, the media, all of their falseness. It's all implanting your thoughts. You're not having any of your own. You need to disconnect. You need to sit, think to yourself that it's all bullshit, which it is, and start thinking for yourself. And that is exactly what's happened on Friday of British. You know, with this reverse engineering of antiquity, I feel, and I know, especially with AntiqueTech, you know, the gladiators, the Colosseum, nobody knew until a month ago their real purpose. Yeah, and there's more to come. I got more of this series, and it will prove beyond any shadow of a doubt this is a reality. This is what they were doing in antiquity. They could do anything with water. The prospect of humanity are amazing if we could unleash this.
Yes. Now, I do want to note that so this show that we're doing here is first airing on the radio. And I want to let everyone know who's listening that I do have running a slideshow underneath the link for the radio that has many different pictures. I probably posted maybe about 30 different pictures.
Wow, get on my website. I got 10,000 on my photo dump.
Yes, and so
Oh,
while
brilliant.
as this first airs, people, some of them are only listening, and of course later I will be putting up, and you may be putting up this video for people to see. So there is a picture of a Tartarian building behind me here, have in my virtual background. And so in regards to those who are maybe just listening right now, and for them to take a look at the buildings differently around them, can you do a description of the Tartarian buildings and the AntiqueTech? I love that word. It's the first time I ever heard it. I actually didn't look
I remember the day I thought it, and Lee went, yeah, Matt, yeah. You spelled it wrong.
I love it. AntiqueTech. It's so true and so very real. Allowing the imagination to release. So there are many different aspects about free energy, resonators, the antennas, that the structures that people aren't aware of and you talk about. So can you go into now us viewing these Tartarian buildings and how, again, we'll just emphasize that they were here already, but other cultures, these infiltrate traders, these falsification people have documented and told us that they built them, but those narratives are not true. And that has also come in Sylvie's show. We emphasized that. And your show very greatly emphasizes that. So can we talk about the aspects of these buildings so that people can?
Sure, they are there already. Damn right they are. You know, I did an expose last week. I used Amsterdam as an example and its development of the city, or its planning. And they weren't planning a city, they were digging a city out. The evidence is in the photographic record, the evidence is in paintings. You have giant Tartarian structures. Concert hall, the concert hall for Amsterdam is in the middle of a field. It's the best antiquity, best architectural quality you would ever imagine, interior and exterior, okay? Yet, the elites that go in to watch the opera, they have to go and traipse across a muddy field, being bitten by horseflies, and there's no paths or nothing running up to it is an impossibility. And Amsterdam seems to be covered with these at this time, okay? Because this is the latest events of that massive flood that happened in 1772, okay? That took it all out, and then they were reclaiming it from the mud. The Dutch are brilliant engineers and dam makers, and these people are very canny, and they have certainly worked out how to keep the sea at bay, because it is all about the water with these, okay? They're preparing, and it's the same with the structures. Now what they did, they expect it, they know how it works, and they build accordingly. They build accordingly. These, like for the example, that giant dome structure you can see just behind you, or any American civic building like the Minnesota State Building, Austin State Building, the White House, these buildings are made of a specific type of rock hard granite, okay? I've researched into the granite, it was available later, but I'm talking way back, further back. Now these things, if I don't believe nukes exist, but if they did, these things would not move if one went off. They are immense, okay? And they all spoil mudflood. Okay, but the further down you get, if you go into these so-called basements, the ground is rock hard for some reason, okay? Now, these buildings, okay, they were underwater for some time. Water recedes, they come in after. The water, obviously by its nature, and the cyclical plasma events, okay, which will cause somatic waves, you know, sort of earthquakes, or all volcanoes going up at once, that sort of thing. But that happens in a big one, you know. They are limited, smaller resets that they know about. It's almost as if you imagine like electricity, where it just sparks, and then so then they weather. It's all the them ones. So when them happen, okay, They come in and it's free masonry because it's masonry that is free. They come in, okay. Now with the case of Tartaria, they literally revamped the whole lot. They took off any evidence of them being the occupants by wiping the plaques. All plaques in Christendom are wiped blank. You will have Phoenician ornamentation, which is associated with the sea. So it would be seashells, it would be mermen. They're gods. It will be Thames pouring out the water pot. It's all allegory, but it's not really. They're actually showing you how this place works. When you piece it together, which each one is showing you, there's one with the trident, okay, which is Poseidon, god of the sea. These Greek gods, which are not Greeks, they are Phoenicians, which we can trace back to Phoenician origins. I could pull up a book that shows you where their origins came from, Babylon. So they changed the architecture. It's still got really high-end architectural quality. These buildings are built on microcosms of this place, this EM model. Okay, they literally got domes, which is like a Mount Meru. They got like 4 angels. They're working on electromagnetic principles. But the columns as well resonate, and they're made of a specific marble. The whole thing is a machine. It does something. And they still do today. So why when you go in some of these, really big public buildings, massive staircases, marble floors, myself, I feel like I'm going to get a nosebleed. I feel this building has a presence, and I feel there's pressuring down on me. How can a building have presence? Well, they do. Buildings are alive. They do have presence. They're like old men, some of them. Okay, they're friendly or they're not. Okay, they can look after you. Okay, they can not. This is what I think of these buildings. Why would the whole of the power structure be based on architecture? They put it on all their banknotes. Everything is their greatest symbols of their achievements for power and capitalism is their buildings, isn't it? It'd be the White House, or it'd be the Houses of Parliament. Buildings are everything with these people, the architecture. They build accordingly, I think, and they weather them, and when it all, sort of resets, which they know about, and they will, they prepare accordingly. And then they come out and then they clean up the cities, but the population arriving still doesn't answer the question where they come from, okay? Millions died, we could trace them. We know where their skeletons are. They're in like the catacombs of Paris. Then once I showed you with a million in just in pits in Havana, or millions, and this is across the plain. You can trace this mass die-off only that recent time ago, okay? Mid-1800s, when they're attributing it to famine. In the case of the Irish, it was the potato famine, okay, or a cholera epidemic, because they want you to believe that every single watercourse in the whole of the world was infected by the same cholera epidemic. Now, that's impossible in itself because they're not all connected to one. So that killed, that's what the official narrative is, but really there was a reset. They were cleaning this place up, okay, and I think it was done and dusted by around 1830s and 40s. Mud still showing in Russia and places like Tomsk, St. Petersburg even, at this period. In the photographic record, you will see there's zero population, no life, none, no birds, no dogs. And it's not only St. Petersburg, you could go to Venice. Well, I got a photographic record very early of St. Marcos Square should be teeming with pigeons and people, and it's dead. People will use exposure problems all the time of day. You got out early when nobody was around. Cities of this size in seaports are buzzing early in the morning. And not only that, okay, you can get the shadows on lampposts. We're looking at middays in some of these pictures. These should be these empty, like stage set cities, like in Westworld, the movie, ready for a population to turn up, cleaned out all the mud. You get these crews come in, clean these places up, get them ready, get the infrastructure ready. In this case, with the Expositions, introduce the New World. All of the people in the late Victorian photographs, right, are relatively young. You don't see any really old people. No, you won't. You won't see 80 and 90-year-olds. They're really rare for some reason, but they are overwhelmingly children, okay, in all of these Victorian images, even up to the Edwardian days, beginning of the 1900s. Now, these reset children, they've arrived from somewhere. Are they stored somewhere off ponds? In my case, I'm flat earther, so I really do think that there is more land on the other side of what they call the land and the ice that goes around this place, the Antarctica, so-called continent. I think it's close. I think they go there, and I don't think it's that far away. I think you could probably fly there. It's that close, and I think it's other continents, and I think that they are, warm and livable, and I think it's close by, and I think this has to be the case of where these are coming from. Mining as well seems to be an operation, and I don't think it's just all about resources. They're using maybe the centipede just to ravage, and all of these continents are outside, cutting the land away. Maybe they're backfilling it like they do in Dubai, stealing our land, shipping it out. Who knows? But the whole place looks like it's been mined. I mean, on a bigger scale, the whole place shows massive plasma affected areas. So where you get sparked, there's some ideas that the moon being a luminary and definitely a plasma object. Can't define it, but it's definitely plasma. Could get a little too close. There is arcing spots all over it. Okay, they're not craters. Craters don't work like that. If there was such things as craters, they come in at different angles. They don't all land both, and then there's just a hole. It's just a ridiculous notion anyway. We've tested that. Doesn't work. We've tested this in sand. Doesn't work. These are plasma discharge points, and they exactly look like them too, so they are. And you get them exactly matching the Earth's surface. This is part of the cycle when the sky, what they call the sky fall, which is basically land sort of rising, if you like. It's difficult to explain. It really is. You have to bear with me in this.
Oh, that's wonderful so far. I did want to mention that your sound altered just a little bit. So just slightly. I don't know if something got affected there.
My computer off. Maybe I'm killing my broadband away. Anyway.
Got a little staticky. That we just
use on bass.
Just very slightly. It's sort of a slightly hissing sound that came on, and you were sort of going up and down in volume a little bit, but it's not too bad. And potentially it might not even be picking up on the recording. I have pretty good earbuds on.
Oh yeah, so sorry.
It's okay.
Quite a way away, so we'll go with it.
I think it sounds a little bit better now. Okay, so now the antennas that are on these buildings, well, let's take a look at the fact there are resonators or antennas on the building. The structure of them, as you said, they are alive. And then we're looking at that they are extremely tall. They have huge doorways, huge, vast insides. We have to wonder, what is the sense of building things this tall, and so let's talk about that and the potential that there were tall people scaled back in different times. And then the most unusual of all is it true that there are or were absolutely not any indoor bathrooms in these places? And what that possibly means. So can we talk about maybe those 5 different factors about the original Tartarian buildings and their structure?
Okay, well, the atmospheric electricity, I think, was used up until probably the 1895 to 1900 mark. It disappears off the photographic record, but seems to be there until then. Okay, now it seems some may be still active. Okay, I've seen some evidence out in places like Cambodia and stuff. So the resonators themselves, they're based on perfect geometric geometry, and basically they have to be symmetrical. Okay, perfectly symmetrical, and they have to be made of the purest metal. Now, I would love to be able to reverse engineer one of these things and be able to make metal of such purity. Sorry, I know, love. Metal of such purity, and then I could try it myself, because when you do that, this thing will naturally resonate with the ether. Like it would be just so sweet. So they're using that technology. They still work, some of them, I think, but the mechanism, these steels that go through the domes into the onion domes and down into the superstructure, the whole thing becomes magnetized. The whole structure has wire in its superstructure, which would make it magnetized. This is different technology to now. Okay, there's different fundamentals of physics. This is amazing to humanity. I can't even imagine the full prospect. Now, with the architectural quality, that is down to resonation as well. If angles, it's called technosmia, that's a science of vibrational quality, sounds, echoes, bouncing off of geometric ceiling layouts, which is also an incredible subject, which will bounce back and will be interpreted by the human in a very specific way, sound frequency wise. So it could be 4, 3, 2, etc. They use church organs. Organs, they are completely different to the organs that they were, okay? They came in and they reverse engineered these things. They were something bigger and better before. These organs, okay, were good for your organs, okay? These organs made things special. And there's no accidents. They're just underneath these organs. They have amazing cymatic patterned windows. You may have witnessed one on the, basically, the Notre Dame event, okay? Cymatic patterned windows is no accident, because these, through the lead as well in the windows and the specific way of making this glass, allows this vibrational quality to emit through into the ether for the benefit of all in the towns and countryside. Benefits: massive production of vegetables and foods. Trees grow bigger, they're gone, they're taken out. Mudfloods, you won't get any over 200, 300 year old now, they're all gone, they got taken out. That's another extra proof the mudflood is a reality. There's no trees, old ones, they're all gone. They should be there. Some on higher grounds in America have survived it, okay? So it's just mental stuff. The benefits for humanity are just exceptional. People, now they've obviously, not obvious really, but when you have a look at it and you think, why are they building the entrances to all these department stores or hotels in all of America and all of Britain? It seems to be like 50 foot high and really, really massive arches, and the doors are incredibly big too. So why would they make doors so big? Because there was a race, I think, living alongside us, and I think they were okay as well. And I think that was the giants. I think they too were Tartarians. I think they were subjugated by the Phoenicians, who were little fat squirty guys, okay, that just got rubber lips like wet lip Romans. Can't stand them, can't stand them. You know, the Tartarians are the people, okay, and these are the controllers. Everybody else who works for them or wants to be like them gets to have their attributations, meaning it's the same sort of mindset will give them the actual appearance of these people. I've actually watched it in my life. I'm like, because you think like them, you actually look like one, which is why most of them look pretty much the same for some reason. It's the mindset, it's the self-projection that they introduced through the Bacchusite mindset of the Phoenicians, and it works to such a great extent that people won't even question it. You know, this is what the first thing that happened when I got into flat Earth is, I don't know if I'd have had the same response from people. I don't know whether I would even pushed with it. But what the first thing happened was everybody got annoyed and called me a retard and called me stupid. And I thought, oh, is it? Oh, is it really? And that really infused me to go into this a lot more. People hadn't come in like that, you know. And I think, why that response? I'm only questioning the environment we live in. Am I not allowed to question the environment we live in, even though there's no evidence? You know, I'm looking at photographs. I'm not looking at reality, and I'm never going to see this ball. Why do I have to believe in it? I'm never going to go out there. It's never going to happen. There's no out there, you know. And that is in my mind. When I say those words now, that sounds completely rational and logic, and I'm not stepping outside of no boundaries. I'm just saying that there's no proof in my real life, okay? Not that I know of. There are other reasons for what's going on, and we don't understand our consciousness anyway, okay? We don't even understand if the consciousness is internal perception, as in, you are not in this room, okay? The room is in your mind, projected on a little screen in the back of your mind, meaning that everything is in your mind. I like to go with that. Or is in a projection, meaning that you are a receptor and this is all projected, you know, emitted, like the wave function collapses, quantum mechanics would call it, for your, you know, conscious observations. That could be an aspect of it too, and that could be an aspect of what's going on here too. You know, I think as this awakening grows, I think that people are getting more and more to see this. It's like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain. There's the controller, the little dude controlling the world. You know, this little sad dude who landed on from a balloon out of a vortex into, you know, this other world. I think this story has so much similarities with the real, well, what's going on. They always do it in the movies. There's always an underlying theme. The film like Gone with the Wind is a definite. I just played it out in my mind like literally 2 days ago, and I thought, oh my God, that's the Phoenician takeover at Tartaria. That's exactly what that film is about. The sides, the two families, the elites, and this underlying thing about houses, you know. And it was like, oh yeah, and they keep doing it. And there's so many films that will do it with as well. And they really, really like to brag, but they like to keep themselves confessed on. This is their buzz, yeah. This is
exactly. I so agree with you. I completely agree with you. And it's sort of a theory coming to mind, but as they've begun with 3D printers, and something interesting that Sylvie said about magicians of the past, that we are 3D printers.
I think it, but still, look, a lot of stuff Sylvie said have stuck in my head, like, you know, like a branding iron with Sylvie. She's the woman that got me even looking at this in the first place. You know, I tried to contact her, but she sent me a video saying flat earthers and nuts and stuff, so I didn't bother again. She's a lovely lady. I would love to connect, but there you go, can't have it all. But yeah, she's so on the money. I think I got a sneaking suspicion of how some of this stone technology was made. I actually going to do a video about it. I've got it actually waiting in the background, and my ideas what I think is going on, you know, with these polygonals, etc. I think I know how that was done vibrationally. I think I know how it was done. Manifestation, I think, is a reality. You know, I'm 3D printing these, you know, were we that sentient and we were that forward? I just got a sneaking suspicion that we were. Yeah, I really, really do think that we were magic bats. Just do it, you know. These statues are unbelievable, and they can't be. Some of these paintings, you know, like Sylvie says, microns thin, impossible, with a pot of red ochre, you know, in the medieval. They can't replicate it today, outside of, you know, 3D printing. The 3D printing. Okay. And yes. Manifestation is a reality because I have manifested. And I don't mean like, you know, literally looked at something and it's appeared, but I have intended to have something, and within, you know, in a short time, or maybe weeks even, without any doubts, because that will just make it evaporate and disappear. That's how intent works and law of attraction. It arrives. It arrives. Yeah. Doubt is the biggest, you know, problem with humanity, is doubt in itself, I reckon. If you know, intend that what you want and never limit, and just think, you know, that voice that comes in and says, no, you can't do that. No, you're not up to that. You know, you can't do that. That voice is not you. That's not your friend. That's someone negging you out. That's an enemy in your head. I tell it where to get off, and I get on with the job. I really, really do. And it just makes for a better existence in this place, a realer, you know. Something external messes with us, is what I think. They call it Archon, they call it Jinn, okay? It's wrote about to a great extent, you know, the Greeks, Archons, said that they got their knowledge, right, from out there as well, okay? Meaning that they, you know, absorbed the knowledge from the Akashic record, you know. And the classical Greeks that we're talking about, so that's Aristotle, that's Aristophanes, all of these people, these great thinkers that they have to, will say that they pulled it out of the ether, okay? Which is all where thought comes from in the first place, I think. They're telling you anyway, so I think that's the case. Amazing. But the Greeks and the Romans, they will push Greek classical education in universities, colleges, campuses, all over Christendom. And there's that as the reality for introducing democracy and the way that this place is, when it's not that at all. It was Tartaria. They are Phoenicians. They introduced this sick system of greed and wantonness and capitalism. And you want this, you want that. We don't want it. We don't want any of it. No, we really, really don't want it. Because when you get old, and if you end up in, like, you know, an old age pensioner's home, demented and dribbling and pooing yourself, you're going to know when your life has passed you by, right, that you were wrong. This is the breaking point for humanity. I think we need to wake up. I wish people could listen to me. I wish I could get more to listen to me, but YouTube is stepping on me chronically. I can't really get my word out.
I so agree with you, and would like to interject at this point. You hadn't listened to one of the previous shows where it was introduced about titans and giants, and then human-sized people, and how there were battles in the past. And I kind of have my insights were kind of going, that battle stuff, that talk about battle, sort of reminds me of how we introduced so far the ideas that we can and always had the potential to be civilizations that even if we were different scaled in size, we could be cooperating together. And that is always introduced into, of course, the Disney fairy tales and themes, the good giant, etc., and then there being negative giants. So obviously, in all civilizations,
I smell the blood of an Englishman, you know.
Exactly. So they've known the stories, they fed them through fairy tales, they altered the fairy tales, and I'm very articulate about that. Even though in the first show it was introduced that there's so much truth in media and comic books, cartoons, etc., TV shows, very true. But we have to be very careful about the non-truth parts, the 10% that's disinformation, because in that part, those parts of the wars that take place are the false parts. I'm not saying they didn't take place, but we don't want to carry them to with us to believe that that's the only potential for how peace can be achieved. It doesn't make any sense. It's very inaccurate. And it's, again, a predictive programming.
Okay, I got to go shortly. I have my son. I've got to basically go to, travel and go out with him now shortly.
Yes, I was going to ask you, and I meant to. I'm sorry. I got so enthralled with listening to you.
Oh, it's buzzing. I'm buzzing myself.
Yeah, but I thought you may have a time limit here, and we definitely have been talking for a very maybe close to about an hour, 40 minutes.
I think it'd be longer, but I really, I forgot all about Lawrence had to go and do
Well,
this.
we certainly can continue again. So we will end here with that idea that there were different scales of humanity, and that we can peacefully come together, because there are thoughts about the end meeting the beginning in this current time frame. And my thoughts of it, yes, we do meet the beginning. I see that with everyone. I've always felt that's what the snake eating its tail means, but because we complete a 360 degrees, but we're supposed to go up to a next octave. And Steve Richards and holographic kinetics is going to...
No, it's the time. It's the time. No, we've been doing that for quite some time, but this is the jump now for humanity. They call it the age of Aquarius. There's 1,000 different callings to this time, but it is the next jump for humanity. People need to get on board, because this is what's happening. There's no way out now.
And they try to keep us from not making that octave jump up, but to stay with the old scripts. So I'm even going to be doing a show in the future with a very famous astrologer who has brought in the ideas that we need to let go of the astrology scripts to a certain degree, because they become predictive programming, and that's
sure.
What I have discovered about numerology. So she was the first.
What do you make of me seeing 111 constantly in my existence for all of my life and daily? Yeah. I went to a fortune teller once in a local Cardiff market. Yeah, she was supposed to be really good. My family had been to her, and she'd given really good readings. I went in there and put my hands out, and she looked at my hand. She closed it like that, and she said, "I can't read you, love. You've got to go." And I got scared. I was like, "What? Is he saying I'm dead or something? Well, what's the matter? Why won't you, what's the matter reading me?" She said, "I just won't be able to read you," like that. Freaked me out a bit. I walked away. I was like, "Why? What's the matter with me? Was I so different? Why couldn't you read me?" She would not read me, and she got unnerved by looking at my hand.
Because she probably knew that you would be able to see through something about her.
Buster.
Yeah, exactly. And that you probably don't adhere to locking into a destiny. Well, I will tell you that a lot of these readers and psychic readers are working with mental astral bodies, what we sometimes term our spirit, of soulless individuals, and this is part of the jinn. This is
Martin guides me in this place, man. I navigate through that place in my lucid dreaming state. It helps me.
Yes, and those shadow aspects oftentimes get connected to psychics who aren't aware of this, and they have a higher perspective, but they're not telling the truth all the time, as well as they are telling the past as it happened and not allowing a new future to take place. Right. So she probably feared you because you're breaking the connection to,
Yeah, it's going to smash a paradigm later on down the road. Yeah.
I can relate to many experiences like that myself. Really? I wasn't very well received in the New Age community when it first came in. I red flagged so much. I was kicked out of a lot of different things, but I always saw a different picture. I asked the wrong questions. And I said, something's not right here. I can't tell you how many books I have here that have written all over in the side.
I'm like it. I
don't like this. How dare they say this? This doesn't feel right. And it was an inner barometer that said, no.
I get it. My inner barometer guides me as well. I'm the same.
I think
to myself, shall I say the opposite?
Yeah.
Shall I just blast them with the truth, or shall I just keep stum? That's my... I think my better side. I think, no, that's just going to trail out of control. They're never going to have it. So I just, I tippy-toe.
We tippy-toe. And there's a politeness to everyone being stage of their journey that they are at. But we also have the right to absolutely say we are allowed to move forward. We have freedom of free will. We have protection by that, and on and on. So I'm going to say goodbye to you now.
Look up again. I'm going to go more times, Cindy. My son's asking me to help.
Okay, yes. We'll say goodnight. Thank you so much. Thank you, listeners. And we will see you next week on Twilight Epiphanies Radio. You are a gem and a beautiful blessing. Thank you so much, Martin. Bye-bye now.
Oh, that was epic. Thank you, Cindy.
Okay, yes. Okay, bye-bye.
And you know stuff.
Oh, and thank you. Together again, and together we rise. Bye-bye.
Wasn't it?